Welcome back to the Outer Wilds. We're going to talk about the theme of the Outer Wilds and the technical details of its implementation. That's going to require you to have seen the ending. I'm not going to put the ending footage in here because I'm a terrible editor and it's like 6 hours long. So I'm going to assume that if you're watching this, you are familiar with the ending of this game. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the final campfire, go away. Go play the game or watch an LP all the way through to the end. This is not something where having played a little bit of the game will be fine. This is something where if you don't know the actual final ending, you won't know what I'm talking about, and there's no point to watching the video at all. Now, with that in mind, let's get started. The theme of this game is coming to terms with the cycle of life and death. This can be a pretty heavy topic. It's something that is easy to get overwhelmed by, especially with the ending that these folks go for, which is everybody dies. You fail. You accomplish nothing. You've never been able to accomplish anything. Everything's hopeless. You can't save the galaxy. You can't save your world, your sun. You can't save your friends. Everything dies. And that's pretty bleak, but it doesn't feel bleak. It doesn't feel bleak because the game has spent the past 20 hours, or however long you've been playing, convincing you that that's something beautiful and melancholy rather than bleak. This approach is a technical approach. It's something that we can do, and it's something we should talk about because it's a very powerful way to do things. This is a game that makes people cry. And that's something that we should aim for. Maybe not necessarily crying, but having that kind of emotional impact. So one of the things that this game does to support that theme and set that all up is that it sets up the conclusion. In order for us to feel satisfied by the conclusion of a game, we have to feel like that game's conclusion was correct and earned and in line with the rest of the situation. This game has a perfectly suitable conclusion. This is something where you're going to accept the conclusion. You know, the instant it happens, you're like, of course, it could never have been anything else. If you compare this to other games whose conclusions have been a little bit more controversial, like Mass Effect 3, you'll find that a big part of the difference is how willing the players were to accept the conclusion. Mass Effect 3 was never about the end of the galaxy and having to reset all of your progress, but this game is. They do this throughout the game. It's not something that just pops up at the end. This isn't something where they spring it on you. The entire game sells us on the idea that the ending of the game will involve us failing. All of our progress in the game gets reset every half hour. Every time we learn something, it's just some nugget about someone else's life that doesn't have any clear solutions in it. Every time we think we're going to learn a way to save something, we find out that that's not something that can happen, like our sun. Can we stop our sun from exploding? Is it exploding because the ancients had a plan to explode it and then rewind time, that sort of thing? Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe we can. No, the sun is exploding because it's old. This is the end of the sun's lifespan. Oh, do you want to, maybe somehow get your people out to a different sun? I mean, how could that happen, right? You've only got half an hour, but you could try, all of the suns are dying. The galaxy's time is at an end. Everything is dying. There's no way that you can go into that and think, oh yeah, my character is going to have a big impact here. No, you know right from the start, subconsciously or consciously, that this is not going to be a game with a happy ending. That doesn't mean it's got a sad ending. It's got a melancholic ending. Setting up the scale like that was one of the things they did to set that up, but they also bake it into the various missions and the setups there. As we do our missions, we regularly uncover the fact that it's a futile mission, and this is the last time it'll ever happen because the ruins are buried, or the last of the energy was just used up, or whatever it is. Everything in this game has a sense of finality and futility, but the game sells it as beautiful and hopeful. And it has to sell it as beautiful and hopeful for 20 hours in order to set up the ending where your futile final moments feel beautiful. Another thing that this does is it sets up the personal connections. Having personal connections is really important in this kind of game because humans are very good at empathizing with people, or things we consider people. So using people is a core part of the experience. Obviously, one such person is Chert here. Chert is another traveler to the stars, just like us. There are several of them out here, and they each are out in the middle of nowhere on their own, playing their instrument alone in the dark. But they are not technically completely isolated. They talk to each other, they listen to each other over great distances. They use these telescopes and signal scopes to see all there is to see and to work out all of the things that need to be, you know, they can flirt with each other and have fun with each other even when they're separated by vast interstellar distances. And of course, at the end of the game, that becomes quite literal as death removes all the distances between us. All the barriers that put us separate from each other are gone, and we can hear those individual instruments in a grand chorus as we see the entire skein of existence as represented by a campfire sing-along. And it's extremely powerful. Lots of people cry. But it's not something you can just spring on them. You don't spring a campfire sing-along up at the end there just for kicks. You have to spend the whole game setting it up. And it's not just these pieces. It's not just these 5 people out here in space. It's the ancients as well. Not only do they join you with their chorus to show you that this is truly an eternal cycle, but you also see all of their lives written into the stones. All of them had lives as rich as yours. Every mission profile you read, every bit of scrawl on a wall, it's always got people in it. It's people living their lives, struggling together, passing on torches. And it's a very beautiful way to set all this up. It's baked into the game at every level, this kind of personal touch. The thing about this is that none of these people are your friend. There's very little in terms of actual personal connection here. But that's okay. This is a theme that can work quite well with very limited personal interaction. This is a theme that can work quite well with just a couple of people who are walking the same path as you, doing the same things as you. Their goals are the same as yours, and their experiences are reflected in your eyes and your experiences in theirs. And that's perfect for the kind of theme we're working with. If you wanted to take a different kind of theme, you could look at Life is Strange. Life is Strange is about friends, or lovers, depending on how you want to take it. Either way, it's about very, very personal connections with other people and how far you're willing to go. Those are wonderful themes. Now, Life is Strange is not quite as thematically on point as this game. I don't think there has ever been a game that's as thematically on point as this game. There's a lot of cracks in how it's structured. But Life is Strange was very popular, and it was very popular because of that interpersonal connection. And this game is also very popular because of its interpersonal connection. It's highly effective, even though that interpersonal connection is a little bit vague and nebulous. It comes together because it suits the theme so well. And that's a key here. The personal connections that we form are not there to just make us like the game. They're there to sell the theme itself. And the last part of this puzzle, for me at least, is that having a theme like this helps to sell the entirety of the writing experience. All of the pieces of this game that lock together could lock together because the writers knew what the theme was, because they knew what they wanted. They were able to create content rapidly and effectively and keep it on topic and interesting and working together. And obviously there was a lot of work to be done, but it was work that could be done. It didn't come off feeling scattered and chaotic because they knew what the theme was. An example of this taken to a fractured extreme is Paradise Killer. Paradise Killer has a lot of the same setup as this game. You wander around a dead world. You're looking at the lives of people who are long gone and their plans and their attempts to build things and destroy things and work things out. But there are several themes in Paradise Killer, and they're fractured. I think they're accidental, or at least partially accidental. Because they don't really come together as a whole, you can see each of them work very well within the constraint of that one part of the game. Like, the city has a very specific theme about the people who died there, the people who lived and died in the city. But that theme does not spread to the survivors that you're talking with or to the final confrontation. But it could. I'm not saying that they did a bad job. Paradise Killer is fantastic. I'm saying that if you think in terms of theme, you can unify all of those experiences. You can get them to work together. Nobody plays this game and says, oh, you know, you remember that the church segment, this guy's church, the church segment was so different and it clashed with the rest of the mission objectives and whatever. No one says that because it all flows perfectly fine. The developers could put it together like a finely tuned watch naturally because they understood the themes that they were using and they used them. They didn't have to struggle to think like, oh, well, what should we do? Let's see if there's anything, you know, on the news or in current fashions or whatever meme is popping up to make us, you know, want to do something. They understood what they were aiming for, and therefore the things they were writing flowed into the game relatively easily. You can compare this to something like Mass Effect, where the early Mass Effects had accidental themes, similar to the way that Paradise Killer has themes. They were fractured, but they kind of worked together. But by Mass Effect 3, the themes had become very fractured to the point where people weren't bothering with them anymore, and we got a lot of unsuitable elements, like a self-insert ninja and a news lady that had been imported from reality just so that you could date a news lady that was popular at the time. These sorts of additions clashed rather dramatically with even the fragmentary themes that the rest of the game had. And they didn't need to be there. You could have written very compelling characters by sticking to theme, and we know that because the first two games were full of them. This is why I really think that writing on theme, writing with a theme in mind, is an incredibly powerful tool. It creates an experience that flows well, it creates an experience that ties people together, and it creates an experience where the ending will really, really pop. Of course, not every theme uses the exact same techniques. You're going to have to make sure that your techniques work for your theme. But this is a game well worth studying just to see how every inch of it supports the core theme of learning to cope with the cycle of life and death. That's it. Feel free to ask any questions or put any comments that you'd like to talk about down below. And if you haven't played the game through, you shouldn't be listening to this, but don't even watch the comments. Just go play through. See ya.